Mountains are like pegs. In geology, the phenomenon of folding is a recently discovered fact. Folding is responsible for the formation of mountain ranges. The Earth's crust on which we live is like a solid shell, while the deeper layers are hot and fluid, and thus inhospitable to any form of life. It is also known that the stability of the mountains is linked to the phenomenon of folding, for it was the folds that were to provide the foundations for the reliefs that constitute the mountains. Geologists tell us that the radius of the Earth is about 3,750 miles, and the crust on which we live is very thin, ranging between 1 and 30 miles. Since the crust is thin, it has a high possibility of shaking. Mountains act like stakes or tent pegs that hold the Earth's crust and give it stability. The Qur'an contains exactly such a description in the following verse. Have we not made the earth as a wide expanse and the mountains as pegs? Al-Qur'an, chapter 78, verses 6 and 7. The word awtad means stakes or pegs, like those used to anchor a tent, and they are the deep foundations of geological folds. A book named Earth is considered as a basic reference textbook on geology in many universities around the world. One of the authors of this book is Frank Press, who was the president of the Academy of Sciences in the USA for 12 years and was a science advisor to former US President Jimmy Carter. In this book, he illustrates the mountain in a wedge shape and the mountain itself as a small part of the whole, whose root is deeply entrenched in the ground. According to Dr. Press, the mountains play an important role in stabilizing the crust of the earth. The Qur'an clearly mentions the function of the mountains in preventing the earth from shaking. And we have set on the earth mountains standing firm, lest it should shake with them. Al-Qur'an, chapter 21, verse 31. The Qur'anic descriptions are perfect agreement with modern geological data. Mountains firmly fixed. The surface of the earth is broken into many rigid plates that are about 100 kilometers in thickness. These plates float on a partially molten region called a asthenosphere. Mountain formations occur at the boundary of the plates. The Earth's crust is 5 kilometers thick below oceans, about 35 kilometers thick below flat continental surfaces, and almost 80 kilometers thick below great mountain ranges. These are the strong foundations on which mountains stand. The Qur'an also speaks about the strong mountain foundations in the following verse. And the mountains hath he firmly fixed. Al-Qur'an, chapter 79, verse 32. Human beings created from nutfa, or minute quantity of liquid. The glorious Qur'an mentions no less than 11 times that the human being is created from nutfa, which means a minute quantity of liquid or a trickle of liquid which remains after emptying a cup. This is mentioned in several verses of the Qur'an, including chapters 22 verse 5 and chapter 23 verse 13. Science has confirmed in recent times that only 1 out of an average of 3 million sperms is required for fertilizing the ovum. This means that only a 1 to 3 millionth part, or 0.00003% of the quantity of sperms that are emitted is required for fertilization. In 1925, an American astronomer by the name of Edwin Hubble provided observational evidence that all galaxies are receding from one another, which implies that the universe is expanding. The expansion of the universe is now an established scientific fact. This is what Al-Qur'an says regarding the nature of the universe. With the power and skill did we construct the firmament, for it is we who create the vastness of space. Al-Qur'an 51:47. The Arabic word musi'un is correctly translated as expanding it, and it refers to the creation of the expanding vastness of the universe. Stephen Hawking, in his book A Brief History of Time, says, "The discovery that the universe is expanding was one of the great intellectual revolutions of the 20th century." The Qur'an mentioned the expansion of the universe before even man learned how to build a telescope. Honey has healing properties. The bee assimilates juices of various kinds of flowers and fruit and forms within its body the honey, which it stores in its cells of wax. Only a couple of centuries ago, man came to know that honey comes from the belly of the bee. This fact was mentioned in the Qur'an 1400 years ago in the following verse. There issues from within their bodies a drink of varying colors, wherein is healing for men. Al-Qur'an, chapter 16, verse 69. We are now aware that honey has a healing property and also a mild antiseptic property. The Russians used honey to cover their wounds in World War II. The wound would retain moisture and would leave very little scar tissue. Due to the density of honey, no fungus or bacteria would grow in the wound. A person suffering from an allergy of a particular plant may be given honey from that plant so that the person develops resistance to that allergy. Honey is rich in fructose and vitamin K. Thus, the knowledge contained in the Qur'an regarding honey, its origin and properties, was far ahead of the time it was revealed. Every living thing is made of water. Consider the following Qur'anic verse. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit of creation before we clove them asunder? We made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe? Al-Qur'an, chapter 21, verse 30. Only after advances have been made in science do we now know that cytoplasm, the basic substance of the cell, is made up of 80% water. Modern research has also revealed that most organisms consist of 50 to 90% water and that every living entity requires water for its existence. Was it possible 14 centuries ago for any human being to guess that every living being was made of water? Moreover, would such a guess be conceivable by a human being in the deserts of Arabia where there has always been scarcity of water? The following verse refers to the creation of animals from water. And Allah has created every animal from water. Al-Qur'an, chapter 24, verse 45. The following verse refers to the creation of human beings from water. It is He who has created man from water. Then has He established relationships of lineage and marriage, for thy Lord has power over all things. Al-Qur'an, chapter 25, verse 54. Plants created in pairs, male and female. Previously, humans did not know that plants too have male and female gender distinctions. Botany states that every plant has a male and female gender. Even the plants that are unisexual have distinct elements of both male and female. And He has sent down water from the sky. With it we have produced diverse pairs of plants, each separate from the others. Al-Qur'an, chapter 20, verse 53. Human beings created from sulala, or quintessence of liquid, and made his progeny from a quintessence of the nature of a fluid despised. Al-Qur'an, chapter 32, verse 8. The Arabic word sulala means quintessence or the best part of a whole. We have come to know now that only one single spermatozoon that penetrates the ovum is required for fertilization, out of the several millions produced by man. That one spermatozoon out of several millions is referred in the Qur'an as sulala. Sulala also means gentle extraction from a fluid. The fluid refers to both male and female germinal fluids containing gametes. Both ovum and sperm are gently extracted from their environments in the process of fertilization. The bee. And thy Lord taught the bee to build its cells in hills, on trees, and in men's habitations, then to eat of all the produce of the earth, and find with skill the spacious paths of its Lord. Al-Qur'an, chapter 16, verses 68 through 69. Von Frisch received the Nobel Prize in 1973 for his research on the behavior and communication of bees. The bee, after discovering any new garden or flower, goes back and tells its fellow bees the exact direction and map to get there, which is known as bee dance. The meanings of this insect's movements that are intended to transmit information between worker bees have been discovered scientifically using photography and other methods. The Qur'an mentions in the above verse how the bee finds with skill the spacious paths of its Lord. The worker bee, or the soldier bee, is actually a female bee. In Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verses 68 through 69, the gender used for the bee is the female gender, fasluki and kuli, indicating that the bee that leaves its home for gathering food is a female bee. In other words, the soldier or worker bee is a female bee. In fact, in Shakespeare's play Henry IV, some of the characters speak about bees and mention that the bees are soldiers and that they have a king. That is what people thought in Shakespearean times. They thought that the worker bees are male bees and that they go home and are answerable to a king bee. This, however, is not true. The worker bees are females, and they do not report to a king bee, but to a queen bee. But it took modern investigations in the last 300 years to discover this.